everybody. You guys ready for the weekend? I super am. Lots of things to do today. Okie dokie. So, today we're going to be really direct, go right into the lesson. 6.4, solving absolute value inequalities. Today is 5/8. Okay. Now, we solved absolute value equations earlier this year together. So I don't know how much you remember how to do those. But we're going to refresh it because we're going to solve absolute value inequalities now. So let's start with example 1, which is the absolute value of 2m minus 9 absolute value is greater than 13. Okay, now this is the point of the class where I would be like, hey, who can tell me how they would solve this with an equal sign? And somebody would be like, I remember, but since I'm sitting in my kitchen alone in the morning, not even the cat is here, so I can't even ask her what she thinks. So I'm just going to do some pretending and say that I did ask you, and that you were like, oh yeah, I totally remember that absolute value equations, you have to split them into 2 problems. And the first one you just write like normal. And the second one, you put a negative. So the first one is positive 13 and the second one's negative 13. And do you remember that rule how we switch the sign if we're multiplying or dividing by a negative number? Well, the negative 13 over here is almost like multiplying by a negative 13. So we're going to switch the sign. It went from greater than to just a less than. So the first equation that you write looks exactly like the original equation, just without those absolute value signs. And the second equation, the left side looks exactly the same. Then you switch the sign and add a negative to the right side. And then you solve it like normal. And that is the complete and utter tale of how you solve absolute value inequalities. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. I get 2m is greater than 22. And add 9. 2m is less than negative 4. Divide by 2 on both sides. Remember, I would totally switch the sign if I was dividing by negative 2. But I'm not. It's a positive 2. So this is m is greater than 11. And m is less than negative 2. And if I put it on a number line over here, here's negative 2, there's 0, there's 11. They are open circles because there's no equal sign next to them. So this one says that it's less than negative 2. Less than is to the left, so that arrow goes to the left. And this one says it's greater than 11, so that arrow goes to the right. Not too bad. All right, example 2. This is the one where you're going to try it by yourself. Okay. Oh, now's a good time to mention, the Chapter 4 tests are done, all 60 of them, so make sure that you look at your grade on the Chapter 6 test and that you decide if you want to do a retake. The retake form is up on the website. You've got until next week, Friday, to do that, so make sure you take a look at it and get that process rolling if that's something you want to do. All right. You should have paused and tried this problem out yourself. All right, I'm going to start writing 4m minus 20 is greater than or equal to 12. That's exactly what the original equation looked like without the absolute value. And this one is 4m minus 20 is less than or equal to negative 12. So I switched the sign and made the 12 negative. Then you add 20 to both sides. 4m is greater than or equal to 32. Divide by 4, m is greater than or equal to 8. And here, add 20 to both sides. I get 4m is less than or equal to 8. Divide by 4. Don't switch the sign because it's not a negative 4. It's less than or equal to 2. So here are my two answers. And I'm put that on a number line. So I start with 0, and there's 2, and there's 8. And these are closed circles because there's an equals to on both of them. And then it says it's less than or equal to 2. Remember, I had that student who said that their trick was that they would look at this, the inequality, and it looked like an arrow. See how it's kind of got like that narrow point on this side? So the arrow is going that way, so that's how they would know. That actually does work. So, all right, two more examples. 1 and 2 is kind of what you'll normally see. And then we got a couple tricky examples down here. All right, so the absolute value of n minus 1 is less than negative 5. Okay, so when is an absolute value less than a negative number? Well, an absolute value is always positive, right? No matter what you plug in, you would turn it positive in the end. In fact, the lowest that can be in an absolute value is 0. Like if it said like 1 minus 1, then it would be 0 in there, and the absolute value of 0 is 0, and 0 is not less than negative 5. In fact, the only numbers that are less than negative 5 are like negative 6, negative 7, anything that's negative. So since an absolute value is always positive, this is essentially like me saying, when is a positive number less than a negative number? And the answer is never. So there's no solution. If you have an absolute value that is less than a negative number, that is no solution. And at least one of those will come up on your homework, so be prepared. Example 4, the other weird one, is if I said the absolute value of n minus 6 is greater than or equal to negative 5. Okay, so again, this is an absolute value on the left, and on the right, it's a negative number. So when is an absolute value greater than or equal to a negative number? Well, an absolute value is always positive. So when is a positive number greater than or equal to a negative number? Always. That means the answer is all real numbers or infinite solutions. Now, if you were to graph this one, the no solution one on a number line, you couldn't because there's no answer. And if you were to graph this one, you would literally draw a line that went like this over the top that implies that all answers are possible. All right, guys, made it to the end of the week. Now you just have to do a few problems for me. Not too many. Send me the pictures. It is page 371, numbers 1 through 11 odds. Should go pretty fast. Be warned, there's going to be like one of these and one of these in there, so make sure that you pay attention and that you make sure you pay attention to when it has an absolute value and a negative number, because that happens quite a bit. All right. Have a great weekend, guys. I miss you. Bye.